I'm gonna get a little close. This is all right. I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille. I think it accentuates some of my... Hi, my name is Father Mike Schmitz, and this is Ascension Presents. So here is the scripture that is read in Mass on Sundays, occasional Sundays. Here's the scripture that some people even choose to have at their weddings. Here's the scripture that sometimes people in the Bible in a year, or even they're just stumbling through the New Testament and they come across Ephesians chapter 5, and they hit this line that says, "Wives, be submissive to your husbands in all things as to the Lord." And all of a sudden, just like, whoa, what is happening? In fact, when that comes up in the lectionary, right, in the cycle of readings on Sundays, sometimes it's just like, what is happening? What are we going to say? Even there might even be an option to like skip it or to like go over this. When people choose it for their weddings, I sometimes see this confusion of like guests at the wedding are looking back and forth like, did they actually, there's Catholic YouTube, there's Catholic Twitter, there's Catholic all these things. And there's this kind of like this rise in people talking about, yeah, that's what we do. Here's what it is. Husbands, you are leaders. You lead your wife, you lead your family. Men, be leaders. And I'm all about men taking responsibility for themselves, men taking responsibility for the people around them, people that are under their care. But what does it mean to say, okay, guys, you need to lead. You need to lead your family. You need to lead your wife. You need to lead her. And also she needs to submit to you in all things as to the Lord. Like, what does that actually mean? Great question, camper, because I don't think it means what you might think it means. In fact, let's go to the beginning. Earlier on in Ephesians chapter 5, I think it's verse 21, St. Paul begins this whole section by saying, be mutually submissive to each other out of reverence for Christ. So be mutually submissive to one another out of reverence for Christ. Here's the first thing. One is, Paul is saying, submit to each other. You know, I've talked to couples who have said that they hear this and from the outside, it's like, it just seems so like, I don't know, kind of cringy. But from the inside, I talked to this bride and groom just the other day. And they were saying this, the bride was saying, well, I trust him. And so I want to follow his lead. And she said, that just makes sense for me. And I said, yes, this is the whole context that St. Paul's talking about when he says, be mutually submissive to one another out of reverence for Christ. Number one, this is mutually submissive. So this is husband and wife submitting to the other, right? Mutually submissive. Secondly, what is it to submit? What is it to be submissive? It is to place yourself under the mission. Submission is to place yourself under the mission of the other person. And so in a context of marriage, here's this bride who says, oh yeah, I totally trust this man that I want to give my life to, I'll spend my life with. And so she said, for me, it makes sense. It's organic. It's natural to trust him, to place myself under his mission because we have the same worldview. I know his mission. I trust his mission. I love his mission. I can place myself under his mission. And he, likewise, says the same thing, saying, I know her. I love her. I trust her. I know her mission. I can place myself at the service of her mission. So that's the first part, that the submission is I'm placing myself under your mission. I will only do that. I will only do that if I love, respect, trust the other person, if I actually believe in their mission. And then in that case, it makes sense. So what is mutual submission? It is a mutual race to the bottom. So husband and wife, ideally, they would love, respect, and trust the other. They would know the mission of the other. They'd be so united in that mission that it would be a race to the bottom, a race to serve. And this is the key. Again, when it comes back to this, okay, men, you got to lead your family, you got to lead your wife, you got to lead them. You got to just lead them. Like, okay, that means I'm in charge. That means, okay, I'm going to make the decisions. Even brides will say something like that. Like, yeah, I guess that means that, he makes the decisions in the family. That means he's in charge of the family. Is that what it means? Is that what Christian fatherhood, Christian husbandhood, Christian leadership means? I think that we are paying attention to one part and not paying attention to both parts. Like we're paying attention to half of it. So again, there's Catholics, there's Christians who are like, yeah, we're being adamant about this. Scripture says, wives, submit to your husbands. He's going to lead. Okay, he's going to lead. So I'm going to embrace that and be true to the Bible. Okay, great. Question. What's the Christian vision of leading? Like, what is the Christian vision of the one who's called to be the leader? Well, where do we look? We look to none other than Jesus himself. So Jesus is the head, we're his body. Jesus is the bridegroom, we're the bride. How does Jesus lead? Well, he doesn't say, I'm here to make the decisions. I'm the one who's in charge. He says, the Son of Man, meaning himself, did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So yes, husbands, lead. What's leadership look like? It looks like that. It looks like service. It looks like pouring yourself out in love. Doesn't mean like, oh, therefore I make all the decisions. That way, my word is the final word. Maybe it does in some cases. Maybe it does in your family. Maybe that's how you've worked it out. But that doesn't necessarily come from the Bible. The biblical vision of wives submit to your husbands, husbands love your wives. Paul goes on to say, husbands love your wives as Christ loved the church and handed himself over for her to purify her. How did Jesus love the church? By emptying himself out. Not by being in charge, not by making the decisions, but by serving to the point of death. So yes, husbands, lead. But lead like Jesus. It doesn't say, my word is final. Of course, Jesus' word is ultimately final. But who says, I lay down my life for you. I'm at your service. Now, brides, my sisters, if your husband said that, if your husband said, I'm at your service, I'm here to serve this family, I'm here to serve you, I'm here to lay down my life for you, would you be willing to submit to your husband in that case? To place yourself under that mission of this man who says, I will lay down my life for you, and he actually does it? My guess is you probably would. You probably would be open to that. Now, here's an image of this. There's this phenomenal couple. They came here up in Duluth and they got married a bunch of years ago. And after a number of years of marriage, they contacted me because they had a little bit of a stress in their marriage. And the stress was this. The stress was they had a couple kids, and the bride, she always had these really great ideas of, here's how we can grow as a family. Here's how we can grow spiritually as a family. Here's how we can grow just like as a family that's bonded more closely. And she'd present them to her husband. And he would say, wait, let me ask about this. And then he would just do it. He would go out and say, okay, here's what we're going to do. And he would lead so well. But her dilemma was that he wasn't coming up with these ideas. Because in her mind, well, I want my husband to be the head of our family. I want him to be the leader of our family, but I'm coming up with these ideas. And so she saw that as a problem. She even said that, her dad was the one who had all the ideas, and he implemented them in her family when she was growing up. And her older brother in his family, he has all the ideas and he implements them. And I said, wait, so you have these ideas, you bring them to your husband, and he works with you on this, and then he does it all. Like, he doesn't just say, oh, this is my honey-do list. He embraces it, he internalizes it, and he leads your family in like this growth. That's what he does? She's like, yeah, he's amazing. He's incredible at this. But the problem was he didn't have vision, right? The problem was they were her ideas. She saw that as a lack. And I said, well, could it be that you happen to have the gift of vision? Like, you happen to have this insight that your husband doesn't. Could it be that you have certain gifts, your husband has certain gifts? When you utilize and exercise the gifts you've been given, and you bring them to him, and he utilizes and exercises the gifts that he's been given, your family runs really, really well. And so he doesn't have the same vision you do, but he leads really, really well in the way that he can lead. So you serve how you serve with your gifts. He serves how he serves with his gifts. And you do this in such a way that your family continues to grow. You continue to be loved and respected. He continues to be loved and respected. Your children continue to be led and served and loved. Isn't that what's happening? And she thought for a second, she was like, oh my gosh, that is what's happening. I'm using my gifts. He's using his gifts. I am serving in this way. He's serving in that way. And there's this mutual submission that was active, but it didn't look like how she thought it should look. And this is the last word. The last word is, when we talk about these things like lead and submit and all these kind of things, sometimes it doesn't look how we think it should look. But as long as it's happening, then we just rejoice and say, okay, God, may you be praised. We are striving to live according to your teaching. We're striving to live according to what you presented to us. And it just might not always look how I thought it would look. But if it's working, and if it's giving fruit to the body, if it's giving, life and love to my family, then maybe that race to the bottom, maybe that mutual submission is how it was supposed to look all along. Anyways, that's what I got for today. From all of us here at Ascension Presents, my name is Father Mike. God bless.